here we are, here we are in 11 honors, and at least two of us are going to share their poems with us. Isabella, would you like to read it? You don't want to read it, or you will read
Sure.
it? Well, you did this. I can't hear you, but I saw your head. Please. Speak up so we can hear you.
So, morning dew running down windswept leaves, a small black spider spins her rays, painting a picture in the window. Sunlight dances through the trees, casting shadows on the kitchen floor. A quiet breeze moves the curtains as if they were ghosts. Perhaps these specters tell the story of the cottage. They have seen many visitors come and go, sharing stories of their travels. They have seen many late nights, a shuffle of papers, spilled tea, small sighs. The ghosts have swirled and moved as the windows are rattled by lightning, rain, and thunder. But inside Rosewood Cottage there is calm. A fireplace crackles, unaffected by the raging tempest, a place where many have found their peace. Walking the hallways, staring into a mirror, curiously studying paintings, finding something new in them. A particular shade of color, a small brushstroke, a peculiar detail, discovering something new about themselves every time.
That is very good. I really enjoyed that. Wow. I'm very impressed. And I get a copy of it so I can look at it again. Very good. Yeah.
You don't think it's like more personal, I guess?
I mean, I'm not gonna force you to read it, but I would like to hear it. But if you like it, I can't read this out loud. That's up to
I
you.
would prefer not to.
Okay. I'll read it, and then I can maybe come back to. Let me just read what I've got. I won't read the whole thing. I want to finish it for it fits in better here. You're kind of in the mood. This was called the Sandbar Cafe, and there's more coming that for my own sake. Anyway. Ivan Smokestone, that's actually a name too of a color, Smokestone. Ivan Smokestone, his real name, was giving me the evil eye. It was nearly midnight and he was ready to go home. Only his audience, me, insisted on his staying until the Sandbar Cafe closed for the night. At exactly midnight, he thanked his audience, me, packed up his guitar. I clapped, dropped a 20 into his tip jar, and walked out. The boardwalk was almost empty. The summer night breeze refreshed me. I leaned on the railing and took in the night. The big moon made the boats, the river, and the island beyond almost as bright as day. I gazed at the million-dollar yachts docked for the night. On many of them, the party on shore had moved to the party on board. Food, alcohol, laughter, eat, drink, and be merry. I started to feel sorry for myself again on the outside looking in when I noticed her a few feet away, also leaning and looking. She was not bad looking. I'm not saying she was attractive, but even in the moonlight, definitely not bad looking. And she looked an awful like somebody I used to know. Since we both were staring at the yachts, I said cleverly, hoping to get her attention, "Must be the life." No response. The dock felt a little crowded at this point, and I didn't feel like pursuing another dead end. So I started to leave when I heard her mumble something. I stopped and turned around. "Excuse me?" I said, "Don't let looks fool you," she responded without looking at me. "I don't know about that. Looks pretty good to me," I said, meaning the yachts, but staring directly at her, which she noticed. "Is that the best pickup line you've got?" she responded cynically. The fact is, I considered it a pretty good pickup line if I had meant it to be. "Forgive me," I said. "I was talking about the yachts." "You're also not a very good liar," she said, this time with a smile. "No, really, I protested, but immediately abandoned the effort, seeing the look on her face. I turned my face toward the yachts again. "You remind me of someone." "That's not much better," she responded. "I'd just give it up if I were you." and then I'll continue. This doesn't fit very well, but yeah, I continued. I've never been on one before. I just look at them when they come in, look and imagine. After a short pause, she said, I've been on one before. I've grown up on one. That one. That's my daddy's yacht. Surprised, I said, I thought you said it must be the life. She finally looked at me. I said I grew up on one, but I didn't live the life. I detest that life. She looked me in the eyes. I was just thinking of taking a swim in the harbor and never coming back when you spoke to me. She looked away and said, so I guess you saved my life tonight. I'm no hero, I said, but I do see desperate when I see. I know desperate when I see it. What do you know about desperation? I responded, it may be hard to believe that a guy with my rugged good looks could lose the most beautiful woman in the world, but that's what happened to me. She was quiet and then said, tell me about it. Well, long story short, boy meets girl, boy falls in love with a girl, boy marries girl, girl meets a taller, richer boy, girl leaves, boy moves here, sits in the Sandbar Cafe every night listening to music and talking to strangers on the boardwalk at midnight. End of story. Life in the Sandbar Cafe. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I think you have this. Would you get out your pack of poems by Walt Whitman? I enjoyed those, or at least the one that I heard, and I'll read it again.
I have the wrong notebook. Can I go let me get it?
Sure. All right, so Walt Whitman.
Which one is it?
What's that?
What poem is it?
It's the one, it should be in the packet, it's the one that, oh, Captain, my Captain. And tomorrow we'll review for the all right, so let's do this together. It's called Oh Captain, My Captain. We've done the other three. We've done, we did 5 poems by Dickinson, which will be on the exam, on the test. And then all 4 of these will in some capacity. Oh Captain, My Captain, it's written by Walt Whitman. I'm going to read the first stanza. Isabella, would you read the second stanza? And Delaney, would you read the third stanza? This poem is kind of an anomaly. It's different from most of the poems that Whitman wrote. It's not written in free verse. It's almost like an elegy. You know what an elegy is? An elegy is a poem about it's about death, but it's also in praise usually of a particular person who died. Not always, but it usually has it's written on the occasion of death. And so this happened to be the occasion of Abraham Lincoln's death. He wrote several poems, including When Lilacs Last in the Barnyard Bloom. That's a much longer poem. I'd like to do it, but it's just too long. All right, so it's called Oh Captain, My Captain. I'll start, and then if you'll help me. Ready? Oh Captain, My Captain, by Walt Whitman. Oh Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we sought is won. The port is near. The bells I hear. The people all exulting. While follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red. Where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead.
Oh, captain, my captain, rise up and hear the bells, rise up, for you the flag is flown, for you the bugle trills, for your bouquets and ribboned leaves, for you the shores are crowding, for you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head, it is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead.
My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm, he has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, and its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip the victor ship comes in with object won. Exalt the shores and ring of bells, that I with mournful tread walk the deck, my captain lies, fallen cold and dead.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you to do the first thing you always do when you read a poem, you read it twice. So I'm gonna ask you to read it again and mark or note anything that you see of note. All right, so read it again to yourself. And if you see any literary terms, if you can identify the speaker, the setting, I told you the occasion is the death of Lincoln. All right? So let's look at the questions. The poem is about Lincoln. What event is being celebrated and what event is being mourned? Isabella, I told you it's about the death of Lincoln. So
Is it like it's celebrating what he did in life?
which is what? What particular thing is he given a lot of credit for that the poem is about?
Fighting?
Yeah, fighting what? What was he?
Well, I guess like the Civil War.
Yeah, which war?
The Civil War.
Yeah, the Civil War. And who won that war? Right. So Lincoln was the successful leader of that, and so they're celebrating the end of the war. The war ended on April 9th. On April 15th, I think he got shot the night of the 14th, and he died the 15th. So not even a week later, Lincoln died. He only enjoyed the victory for 6 days before he died. All right, number 2, explain the extended metaphor of the poem. An extended metaphor is just that. It's a long comparison that stretches over, in this case, the entire poem, but it could be a stanza, it could be, various lengths. So, explain the metaphor. Who is the captain? Delaney, who do you think the captain is?
Lincoln.
It's Lincoln. What do the ship, and the prize represent?
The going to the war and then winning, I guess.
Okay, so the trip would be the war. What would the ship be? He's the captain of a
Maybe like
ship.
his troops.
Yeah, or you could even say the nation. Because the president is captain of the nation, just like he's the captain of the ship. It's almost like an allegory. And what does the prize represent?
Him winning.
Yeah, the victory. All right, very good. All right. Identify the apostrophe found in the first two stanzas. Identify the one at the end of the third stanza. So, do you remember what an apostrophe is? Remember Blake, the tiger, the lamb, Wordsworth, London, 1803, when he, you remember the lamb? Who is the speaker talking to in that poem? Little lamb who made thee, or the tiger, 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 burning bright in the forest of the night. What fearful hand made symmetry? So, and what is a apostrophe?
Talking to something you can't.
That's right. Talking to something or someone who can't talk back. Okay, who is the object of the apostrophe here? Lincoln. He's talking to Lincoln. And then it says, identify the one at the end of the third stanza. Look at the last four lines of the poem. It says, exult, O shores, and ring, O bells, but I with mournful tread walk the deck, my captain lies, fallen, cold, and dead. Exult, O shores, and ring, O bells. So what, explain that. He's talking to shores and bells. That would be the apostrophe, right? But what does that mean? Who's he really talking to? Yes, the United people of the country. So there are three, actually there are two similes, I'm sorry, apostrophes. One is Lincoln and one is the people, the country. All right, what is the effect of Whitman calling Lincoln dear father and my father? What do you think, Isabel?
I think he makes it like personal.
Yes, that's a good word for it. He says, "Here, Captain, dear father," and then he says, "My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will." In the poem, the speaker is taking his arm beneath his head, lifting his head up. That didn't happen. That's not what happened. But he's picturing himself holding the head of Lincoln, and he's calling him his father. All right. What effect is created by the poet's repetition of heart in line 5 of the poem? It says, "But oh, heart, heart, heart." So what is the effect? What does repetition, any repetition, accomplish? Like, why would you repeat anything?
Make it known.
So it's for emphasis, right? So why do you think he'd emphasize the word heart? and it's not clear which heart he's talking about. Is it Lincoln's heart, or is it
Maybe like
the
the
speaker's
nation.
heart?
The nation,
What does it refer to about the nation?
that they've been fighting. I don't know.
Well, what does the heart represent? Like we're in the season of hearts all over the place, so what does heart represent?
Love.
Love and emotions. And so he could be talking all three. He could be talking about his own heart, because the Lincoln's dead, so his heart is not beating. His own heart is broken. So Lincoln's heart is dead, is not beating, but his own heart is broken. So it emphasizes the emotion of the poet. All right, this is a little complicated, but not too much. It says, the poem has 3 stanzas. Everybody sees that, right? No problem. Each stanza contains 4 long lines, followed by 4 short lines. Analyze this structure. What effect does this pattern have on the rhythm and meaning of the poem? So let's look at it. Go back to the first stanza. And just take a pencil and bracket them. So the first 4 lines are long, the second 4 lines are short in each stanza. First 4 long, second 4 short. The question is, what does this accomplish? So let's look at the first stanza. Or maybe just in general, what is he talking about in the first 4 lines? And what's he talking about in the last 4? Yeah, Isabella.
Is it like the long ones are the ones where they're kind of like celebrating more, or like talking about his accomplishments, and then the shorter ones are like him lying there?
That's very perceptive of you. I think you're right. What accounts for the length of them when he's celebrating versus the shortness of them when he's sad? Is there any, what accounts for the length in relation to the subject? Like this, the second line's, oh, heart, 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 oh, bleeding drop, they're always cut off. You know, you got a few words and they're cut off, so they're very short. Can you figure out why, what's the effect of that? When you said they're celebrating, they have a lot to say, but when he's sad, he has little to say. Can you explain that?
Maybe it's like grief.
Why is it that we would have less to say with grief, but more to say with joy?
Because you don't want to talk about something that's sad.
Exactly. I think you're right. You can almost, you don't want to talk about it, or you're choked up. Every time you say something, you get choked up, you know, like the emotions get to you. Well, that's very good. Can you explain, and this isn't one of the questions, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you explain why he would not have chosen free verse, where there's no rhythm, no meter, there's rhythm, but there's no meter and there's no rhyme, as opposed to here, when he's talking about the death of the president, he uses both. Can you think of a reason why that wouldn't have been appropriate? Maybe, in his case, he made that decision. Do you know why? Well, because he's a president and because it's about death, don't you think that it kind of deserves a more formal, like, treatment? Would you see that? You know, when people die, I mean, you dress up. Why do you dress up to go to funerals?
Respect.
Exactly. And so the formality speaks of respect. And so I think that's why he uses a formal poem style, because he's showing respect for him. All right, very good. All right, so I think we don't have a lot of time. When are we finished? Oh, yes, 40. Okay, well, let me just remind, we have 2, maybe 3 minutes. You have this sheet. I should have given this to him. Anyway, Delaney, have you got this? You got it? All right. We will spend some time in class tomorrow, and then on and then on Wednesday, this is good Wednesday. All right, so tomorrow we'll spend some time, but you do need to be able to tell me with these poems, the main idea of each, like the things we just went over. I can imagine, I think I've done it before, I've asked students to, particularly that last question, explain why the lines are short and long, why is it formal, why is it not free verse? And you did a good job with the lines, and you need to be able to add to that the formality of it versus the informality of free verse. And we'll do this Friday. And please read for Wednesday. Good job. If I finish my story, I may take the privilege of reading it again because I wanted to. It's kind of uneven on me. We'll see you.